The champagne glass shattered beside Ethan Cross's face. Crystal fragments sliced across his cheek. Warm blood slid down his jaw and stained the collar of his cheap black suit. Nobody moved to help him. The entire ballroom stared. Executives, reporters, department heads, men who had laughed at his jokes yesterday, women who had praised his loyalty last week, people who had shaken his hand and called him the future of Blackthorn Holdings. Now they watched him kneel on the marble floor like a condemned dog. Above him stood Damian Blackthorn, his boss, his mentor, the man Ethan had served for 7 brutal years. Damian adjusted his silver cufflinks and smiled. It was the smile of a butcher admiring a clean blade. Beside him stood Sophia Vale, Ethan's fiancée. She wore the white diamond necklace Ethan had spent 3 years saving to buy. Her hand rested gently on Damian's arm. Her engagement ring was gone. In its place sat a larger stone, colder, brighter. Bought with money Ethan had helped Damian earn. Ethan looked at her. Sophia avoided his eyes for half a heartbeat. Then she raised her chin. "Stop staring at me like that," she said. "You are embarrassing yourself." A few people laughed. The sound spread through the ballroom, soft at first, then louder, crueler. Ethan slowly pushed himself upright. His cheek burned. His knees burned. But neither pain compared to the hollow pressure crushing his chest. "Tell me this is a joke," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. Sophia frowned as if his existence irritated her. "A joke?" She leaned closer to Damian. "You thought I would actually marry you?" More laughter. Ethan said nothing. Sophia's lips curled. "You rent a studio apartment. You wear discounted suits. You count every bill before ordering dinner. I spent years waiting for you to become someone. I built the overseas division. You built it for him. I secured the Hartwell merger. You secured it for him. I saved this company from bankruptcy. And whose name is on the building?" Damian raised his glass. The crowd quieted immediately. He looked down at Ethan with lazy amusement. That is the difference between talent and ownership. Ethan's fingers tightened. Damian had recruited him straight out of university. Back then, Blackthorn Holdings had been drowning in debt. Its factories were failing. Its creditors were circling. Damian had promised Ethan partnership, equity, and a seat at the top. Ethan believed him. He worked until his hands shook. He slept beneath his desk. He negotiated through fevers. He buried his father without taking a day off. He missed his mother's final birthday because Damian demanded a revised acquisition strategy before sunrise. Every victory went to Damian. Every failure went to Ethan. Still, Ethan endured. Because Sophia had held his hand in the dark and whispered that their suffering would mean something one day. Now she stood beneath the golden lights wearing another man's diamond. Damian took a slow sip of champagne. "You should be grateful," he said. "I could have had security drag you out before the announcement." "What announcement?" Damian's smile widened. A screen behind the stage flickered to life. Ethan saw his own photograph. Beneath it appeared a list of accusations: embezzlement, insider trading, corporate espionage. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Ethan stared at the screen. Each document carried his digital signature. Each transaction led to accounts registered under his name. Each piece of evidence was perfect, too perfect. He turned toward Damian. "You forged them." Damian sighed. "You really should choose your words carefully." Sophia stepped forward and slapped Ethan. The crack echoed through the ballroom. His head snapped sideways. "Do not accuse my future husband," she hissed. Future husband. The words sank deeper than the glass fragments. Ethan looked back at her. This time he saw no guilt, no hesitation, only disgust. She had not been seduced. She had participated. She had known everything. Perhaps she had helped. Damian handed his glass to a waiter. "Ethan Cross, effective immediately. You are terminated from Blackthorn Holdings. Your shares, bonuses, and deferred compensation are frozen pending investigation." "My shares were never issued." "Exactly." Several executives laughed again. Ethan recognized them. Martin Shaw, whom Ethan had saved from dismissal. Laura Crane, whose failed project Ethan had repaired in secret. Victor Hale, who had begged Ethan for a promotion recommendation. Every one of them smiled now. Cowards always smiled when the knife pointed elsewhere. Damian walked closer. His polished shoes stopped inches from Ethan's blood. "You were useful," he murmured, "but useful men often confuse necessity with importance." Ethan met his eyes. Damian lowered his voice. "Sophia understood that before you did." For one violent second, Ethan imagined driving a shard of crystal into Damian's throat. He imagined the blood, the screams, Sophia's face collapsing in horror. But rage was expensive, and Ethan had already paid too much. A small smile. Cold. Quiet. Damian's expression changed, only slightly. "What is so funny?" Ethan wiped the blood from his cheek. with his thumb. Nothing. Security officers approached. Damian studied him. Ethan's smile remained. It was not forgiveness. It was not surrender. It was the smile of a man who had finally stopped protecting everyone around him. The officers seized his arms. Sophia turned away first. Throw him out. They dragged Ethan through the ballroom. Phones rose to record him. Reporters shouted questions. Employees whispered insults. Someone spat near his shoe. The doors opened. Rain hammered the city beyond. Security threw him onto the pavement. His shoulder struck the stone. Behind him, the doors closed. Warm light vanished. Music resumed inside. Ethan lay beneath the rain while blood and dirt ran from his face. His phone vibrated. A news alert. Blackthorn Holdings executive exposed in massive fraud scandal. Another vibration. His bank accounts had been frozen. Another. His landlord demanded immediate payment. Another. His mother's old house had been seized as collateral for a loan Ethan had never taken. Damian had not merely fired him. He had erased him. Ethan stood slowly. Across the street, the Blackthorn Tower rose into the storm. At the highest floor, Damian's office glowed like a throne above the city. Ethan watched the light. Then his phone rang. Unknown number, he answered. A distorted voice spoke. Cross, this is Detective Rowan. A warrant has been issued for your arrest. You are advised to surrender peacefully. The call ended. Sirens screamed in the distance. Ethan looked down at his phone. The screen was cracked. Rainwater gathered along its edges. His remaining balance appeared beneath a banking notification. $1. That was all Damian had left him. $1, 7 years of loyalty. A stolen fiancée, a ruined name. A prison cell waiting in the rain. Ethan laughed. It was not a sane sound. It was low, empty, sharp enough to cut. The sirens grew closer. He stepped into a narrow alley between two abandoned buildings. Garbage water soaked his shoes. His breath fogged before him. He opened his banking application one final time. $1 remained. A banner suddenly appeared across the screen. It had no company logo, no sender, no explanation. Only a black background and a single line of silver text. Would you like to purchase your future? Ethan stared. Below the question sat one button. Unlock for $1. He almost dismissed it. A scam, a cruel coincidence. But his accounts were frozen. His identity was marked. His life had already been stolen. What could a scam take from a man who owned nothing? Ethan pressed the button. The final dollar vanished. His balance became empty. The phone went black. Then a voice spoke inside his skull. Not from the speaker, not from the alley, from somewhere deep behind his eyes. Corporate sovereign system unlocked. Host identified Ethan Cross. Current assets, none. Current reputation, destroyed. Current authority, none. Current enemies, extensive. Hidden condition fulfilled. Host has lost everything except ambition. Initiating acquisition privilege. The cracked screen glowed. Silver symbols poured across it like liquid metal. Ethan did not scream. He did not drop the phone. He had spent years surviving Damian Blackthorn. A voice in his skull was not enough to frighten him. What can you do? The system answered instantly. The corporate sovereign system allows the host to purchase distressed assets, hidden equity, corporate information, executive loyalty, legal leverage, and ownership opportunities at impossible discounts. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What is the price? The greater the humiliation suffered by the host, the greater the discount. For the first time that night, Ethan's smile became genuine. The system continued. Current humiliation index exceeds critical threshold. Congratulations. You have received a supreme acquisition opportunity. Target, Blackthorn Holdings. Ethan stopped breathing. A holographic panel unfolded before him. Only he could see it. Blackthorn Holdings appeared as a vast web of subsidiaries, shell companies, loans, factories, private trusts, and offshore accounts. Red lines pulsed through the structure. Debt, fraud, bribery, hidden liabilities. Damian's empire was not a fortress. It was a corpse wearing gold. The system highlighted a forgotten holding company buried beneath layers of legal paperwork. Raven Crown Capital. Ethan recognized the name. Years ago, Blackthorn Holdings had transferred emergency voting rights to Raven Crown Capital as collateral during a private rescue agreement. The agreement had supposedly expired. It had not. The rights remained dormant, unclaimed, invisible to ordinary audits. Whoever controlled Raven Crown Capital could seize effective control of Blackthorn Holdings once certain debt conditions were triggered. Those conditions had already been triggered that morning. Damian did not know. His lawyers did not know. But the system knew. Acquisition price displayed. $1. Ethan looked at his empty balance. I already spent it. The system paused. New user credit granted. $1. Ethan almost laughed again. Purchase confirmed. Transferring ownership of Raven Crown Capital. Forging no records. Breaking no laws. Executing existing contractual rights. Purchase complete. Ethan Cross now holds controlling authority over Raven Crown Capital. Effective voting control over Blackthorn Holdings pending activation. A second panel appeared. Activate immediately? Ethan's thumb hovered over the screen. Police sirens passed the alley entrance. He heard officers shouting his name. He could activate the rights now. He could storm back into the ballroom. He could rip Damian from the stage. He could watch Sophia's face shatter. But that would be mercy. Quick ruin was mercy. Ethan wanted Damian to celebrate. He wanted Sophia to sleep in silk. He wanted every traitor inside that ballroom to raise a glass and believe the future belonged to them. Then he would close his hand. Slowly. Not yet, Ethan whispered. Activation deferred. The system displayed another message. Would the host like to review available rewards generated by betrayal? Yes. Reward unlocked. Perfect financial memory. Reward unlocked. Hostile takeover vision. Reward unlocked. Absolute contract analysis. Reward unlocked. Executive loyalty detection. Reward unlocked. Hidden asset radar. Knowledge flooded Ethan's mind. Not pain, clarity. Every negotiation he had ever witnessed reorganized itself. Every clause he had read returned in perfect detail. Every lie Damian had told acquired a price. Every person inside Blackthorn Holdings appeared in Ethan's memory with an invisible weight. Loyal, fearful, greedy, compromised, disposable. Ethan leaned against the wet brick wall. The system revealed more. Damian had stolen company funds to finance secret acquisitions. Sophia had transferred confidential files through Ethan's home network. Martin had accepted bribes. Laura had falsified safety reports. Victor had hidden factory deaths. They had framed Ethan not because he was weak. They had framed him because he knew too much. The realization should have hurt. Instead, it cooled something inside him. The last piece of the old Ethan died in that alley. The loyal employee, the patient fiancé, the man who believed sacrifice would be rewarded. Gone. In his place stood someone quieter, sharper. Free, Ethan opened a hidden interface. Through Raven Crown Capital, he now had access to dormant legal funds. Enough to hire attorneys. Enough to erase the arrest warrant. Enough to buy the debt attached to Blackthorn's most profitable subsidiary. Enough to begin. But he did nothing immediately. He needed Damian confident. He needed Sophia careless. He needed the board divided. Most of all, he needed them to believe Ethan Cross was still crawling through the rain. The system offered him a secure call. Ethan selected a name from the corporate network, Amelia Roth, senior counsel for Raven Crown Capital, a woman Damian believed had retired overseas. The call connected. A calm female voice answered, identity verification, Ethan Cross, new controlling owner, silence. Then rapid typing. A breath, verification complete. Her voice changed. Respect replaced caution. Mr. Cross, I have waited 12 years for someone to activate this account. Ethan watched the tower across the street. Prepare an emergency injunction against the fraud case. On what basis? Blackthorn Holdings used falsified internal records to frame the controlling owner of its senior creditor. Another silence. Then Amelia laughed softly. That will destroy them. No. Ethan's smile returned. It will only keep me out of prison. What do you want done to them? Nothing tonight. Inside the tower, fireworks burst above the roof. Damian was celebrating his engagement. Sophia was probably smiling for cameras. Ethan looked up through the rain. Let them drink, Amelia understood. When do we move? When they believe they have won. The call ended. A black luxury sedan turned into the alley. Its headlights cut through the rain. The rear door opened. Amelia had already sent transport. Ethan stepped forward, then stopped. On the ground beside a trash bag lay a torn newspaper. Damian's face covered the front page. Visionary leader prepares historic expansion. Ethan picked it up. He folded the paper carefully. Then he placed it inside his coat. Not as a reminder of defeat. As an invitation, he entered the car. The door closed. Warm air surrounded him. A clean towel waited on the seat. So did a tablet displaying the internal structure of Blackthorn Holdings. Ethan ignored the towel. He opened the tablet. Damian had planned to announce a massive acquisition at sunrise. The deal required emergency financing. Financing controlled by a bank whose distressed debt could be purchased through the system. The price was absurdly low. A handful of dollars. Ethan had no money, but Raven Crown Capital had millions. He approved the purchase. Another notification appeared. Host has acquired leverage over Blackthorn expansion loan. Damian's greatest triumph now depends on host approval. Ethan leaned back. Rain streaked across the window. The tower grew smaller behind him. He imagined Damian standing in the ballroom, one hand around Sophia's waist, the other raised toward a future he believed he owned. Ethan felt no urge to return. Not yet. Revenge was not a punch, it was an acquisition. You did not destroy an empire by screaming at its gates. You bought its foundations. You purchased its oxygen. You smiled while its king signed documents he did not understand. Then, when every door belonged to you, you asked him to leave. The system pulsed. New mission issued. Acquire Blackthorn Holdings without revealing ownership. Mission reward. Unknown. Failure penalty. None. Ethan raised an eyebrow. No penalty? The system answered. A sovereign requires no threat. Only appetite. Ethan looked at Damian's photograph on the tablet, then at Sophia's smiling face beside him. His expression softened into something almost gentle. Good. He closed the file. Then I will take everything. Not only the company, not only the tower, not only the money, he would take Damian's reputation. Sophia's certainty, the board's loyalty, the executive's pride. He would make them fight for seats at a table he owned. He would let them insult him again. Let them laugh again. Let them announce his ruin to the world. Each humiliation would feed the system. Each betrayal would lower the price. And when the last share fell into his hands, Ethan would invite them all back to the same ballroom, the same marble floor, the same golden lights. Only then would he reveal who owned the building beneath their feet. The sedan disappeared into the sleeping city. Behind it, Blackthorn Tower burned with celebration. Ahead, dozens of acquisition targets appeared across Ethan's screen. Banks, factories, security companies, law offices. Every weapon Damian trusted. Every shield Sophia hid behind. Every throat Ethan intended to close his hand around. One by one, quiet legally. Completely. Ethan touched the dried blood on his cheek. Then he smiled into the darkness. Damian had stolen his fiancée. He had stolen his career. He had stolen his name. In exchange, Ethan had spent $1 and bought the right to become his god. By sunrise, the city believed Ethan Cross was finished. News channels replayed the ballroom footage until his blood on the marble became entertainment. His photograph appeared beneath red banners. Fraud. Betrayal. Cowardice. Every anchor spoke with the confidence of someone reading lies purchased by a powerful man. Inside Blackthorn Holdings, Damian turned Ethan's destruction into a celebration. The executive dining hall overflowed with champagne. Department heads raised glasses. Board members praised Damian's courage for exposing corruption within his own company. Sophia stood beside him in a crimson dress, wearing the diamond he had given her. She smiled for every camera. She spoke softly about heartbreak, about discovering that the man she had trusted was a criminal, about finding strength in Damian's protection. Her performance was flawless. She even cried. One tear, perfectly timed. The market rewarded them. Blackthorn's shares climbed before trading opened. Investors saw a decisive leader removing a dangerous subordinate. They did not see the hidden debt beneath the company. They did not see Raven Crown Capital tightening its fingers around every loan. They did not see Ethan sitting inside a silent penthouse owned by a forgotten Blackthorn creditor. He watched Sophia's interview without expression. Amelia Roth stood near the window. She was tall, silver-haired, and dressed in a severe black suit. A stack of legal documents rested beneath her arm. The emergency injunction has been granted, she said. The warrant is suspended. The evidence against you has been sealed for judicial review. Ethan muted the television. How long before Damian learns? Several hours. Too soon. Amelia studied him. You want him to keep attacking. I want him comfortable. He has already taken your position, your reputation, and your fiancée. Ethan looked at Sophia's frozen face on the screen. No, his voice remained soft. He took a liability from me. Amelia's mouth curved slightly. She placed the documents on the table. Blackthorn's expansion loan closes this afternoon. Without it, Damian cannot acquire Northgate Industrial. And with it, he becomes responsible for Northgate's hidden obligations. The system opened a private panel before Ethan's eyes. Northgate Industrial. Public value enormous. Real value negative. Environmental penalties concealed. Worker compensation claims buried. Machinery failure imminent. Primary production site constructed above unstable ground. Damian believed he was purchasing the largest manufacturing network in the region. In truth, he was buying a grave with office windows. The system calculated the future collapse. Once the acquisition completed, Blackthorn would inherit every concealed liability. The damage would be catastrophic. Ethan leaned back, approved the loan. Amelia's eyes sharpened. You control the debt. You could deny financing and stop the acquisition. That would save him. It would also weaken him. Not enough. Ethan looked toward the city. Damian had always stolen opportunities from others. He took credit. He took loyalty. He took love. Now Ethan would hand him the greatest opportunity of his life, wrapped in gold, filled with poison. Approve every request, Ethan said. Lower the interest. Extend the repayment window. Make the agreement irresistible. Amelia understood. You want him to sign quickly. I want him to beg for the pen. At Blackthorn Tower, Damian received the revised financing offer before noon. He read it once. Then again, his grin widened. The terms were impossibly favorable. No immediate collateral seizure, flexible repayment, accelerated approval. It looked like desperation from a weak creditor. Damian summoned the board. He entered the conference room with Sophia on his arm. Martin Shaw sat near the head of the table. Laura Crane whispered with Victor Hale. Every face turned toward Damian. He placed the financing package before them. Northgate is ours. Applause erupted. One elderly board member raised a cautious hand. The creditor changed its terms without negotiation. That is unusual. Damian did not even look at him. Old men see traps because they are afraid to move. The board member stiffened. Sophia smiled sweetly. Perhaps some people simply lack Damian's vision. Several directors nodded. The elderly man lowered his hand. Damian signed first. Then Sophia signed as a witness. Martin added his approval. Laura confirmed the operational review. Victor certified the risk report. Each signature tied another throat to the agreement. Far across the city, Ethan watched the contract update in real time. The system marked every participant. Damian Blackthorn. Primary liability accepted. Sophia Vale, fraudulent disclosure witness. Martin Shaw. Board authorization confirmed. Laura Crane. Safety concealment confirmed. Victor Hale. Regulatory misrepresentation confirmed. Ethan's eyes moved from one name to the next. They had framed him together. Now they had condemned themselves together. Amelia poured coffee. The acquisition is complete. Release a private congratulatory message from Raven Crown. To Damian? Yes. What should it say? Ethan considered it. Tell him we admire men brave enough to claim what others are too weak to hold. Amelia sent it. Minutes later, Damian read the message aloud to the board. The room filled with laughter. He lifted his glass. To courage. Sophia touched her glass to his, to taking what belongs to you. Ethan saw the recording through a compromised internal camera. He smiled. The system pulsed. Humiliation absorbed. Betrayal converted. Acquisition discount increased. New asset detected. Northgate emergency maintenance supplier. Market price moderate. System price negligible. Ethan opened the file. Northgate's main factories depended on a specialized cooling component. Only one small supplier could produce it quickly enough. The supplier was nearly bankrupt. Damian's analysts had ignored it. Ethan purchased the company through a chain of anonymous funds. The cost was less than a dinner at Damian's favorite restaurant. Another notification appeared. Critical supply leverage acquired. He purchased the insurer covering Northgate's oldest plant. He purchased the debt attached to its warehouse network. He purchased mineral rights beneath its largest factory. He purchased the company responsible for disposing of its chemical waste. Each asset seemed worthless alone. Together they formed a hand around Northgate's heart. The system revealed opportunities faster than ordinary thought. Distressed contracts, forgotten patents, dormant voting rights. Small companies hidden beneath large empires. Ethan moved quietly. He did not buy famous corporations. He bought the doors they needed to open. He bought the bridges they needed to cross. He bought the locks on their vaults. By evening, Ravens controlled dozens of invisible pressure points inside Damian's new empire. Still, Ethan did not activate them. He wanted the poison deeper. Inside Blackthorn Tower, Sophia entered Damian's office carrying 2 glasses. The engagement party had ended. The reporters were gone. The city below shone through the glass walls. Damian loosened his tie. Sophia handed him a drink. Do you think Ethan will fight back? Damian laughed. With what? He always found a way out. That was when I allowed him access to my resources. Sophia looked toward the dark window. He smiled. Damian's laughter stopped. At the party, she turned to him. When security dragged him away, he smiled. Damian, are you afraid of him? No, you sound afraid. I am cautious. He grabbed her chin. Caution is useful when it serves me. Fear is insulting. Sophia forced a smile. Then I am not afraid. Damian released her. Ethan has no money, no allies, no reputation. By tomorrow he will be fighting to stay out of prison. Sophia lowered her eyes. And after that? After that, he will come crawling. Damian sat behind his desk. When he does, I may offer him a job cleaning the building. Sophia laughed. The sound was slightly strained. Damian noticed. His gaze cooled. You regret choosing me? She moved behind him and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. I regret waiting so long. His pride relaxed. He pulled her into his lap. Neither of them noticed the tiny light blinking beneath the conference display. Neither knew Raven Crown's security subsidiary had installed the system years earlier. Ethan closed the feed. He had seen enough. Amelia sat across from him. There is another issue. Speak. Your former apartment was searched. Sophia directed investigators toward your personal files. She planted more evidence, yes, but she missed something. Amelia placed an old envelope on the table. Ethan recognized it. His father's handwriting covered the front. He had not seen it since the funeral. The envelope should have been inside a locked box beneath his bed, Amelia explained. One of our legal teams secured your property before the investigators completed their search. This was found behind a loose panel. Ethan opened it. Inside lay a faded stock certificate, Raven Crown Capital. His father's name appeared beneath it, a minority ownership claim. Ethan stared at the paper. The system reacted immediately. Bloodline asset detected. Historical shareholder rights confirmed. Suppressed inheritance identified. His father had owned part of Raven Crown. Not much, but enough to receive internal records. Enough to discover Blackthorn fraud years ago. Enough to become dangerous. Ethan remembered the official story. A late-night accident, wet roads, mechanical failure. No witnesses. Damian had attended the funeral. He had placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. He had promised to protect him. The system opened a sealed archive. A maintenance report appeared. Ethan's father's car had been serviced by a company owned through a Blackthorn shell corporation. The brake line had been cut. The mechanic received a large payment the following morning. Ethan read every line. His face did not change. Amelia watched him carefully. Did Damian kill him? Ethan folded the report. Not personally. That was not my question. No, his voice became colder. He did not kill my father. Amelia waited. Ethan looked toward Damian's tower. He purchased the hands that did. The room fell silent. The old Ethan might have broken something. He might have shouted. He might have demanded immediate revenge. The man sitting before Amelia simply opened another acquisition screen. The mechanic who had sabotaged the car now owned a small repair chain. Damian had abandoned him years ago. The man was drowning in gambling debt. Ethan purchased the debt. Then the buildings. Then the companies supplying his equipment. Then the mortgage on his home. Within minutes, Ethan owned every stable object in the man's life. Bring him to me, Ethan said. Tonight? No. Amelia frowned. When he loses everything. He may run. He cannot. The system highlighted the mechanic's passport debt restrictions, hidden crimes, and secret family. Every road was visible. Every escape already belonged to Ethan. He closed the file. The night deepened. While Damian slept in the penthouse above Blackthorn Tower, Ethan began grinding through the system's hidden market. He purchased dying software firms for forgotten data rights. He acquired bankrupt recruiting agencies for executive records. He bought a failing newspaper through its printing debt. He obtained influence over a private investigation company by settling its lawsuits. Every transaction increased his authority. Every acquired company generated new information. Every piece of information revealed another discounted asset. The growth fed itself. One company became three. Three became a network. The network became an unseen kingdom. Before dawn, Ethan controlled enough media infrastructure to slow any story about him. He controlled enough legal debt to pressure several Blackthorn directors. He controlled enough logistics companies to interrupt Damian's supply chain without appearing connected. He controlled enough property around Blackthorn Tower to influence future expansion. The system rewarded him. Corporate authority increased. Hidden empire established. Acquisition vision expanded. Ethan's awareness stretched across the city. He saw corporate weakness as cracks of pale light, red around debt, black around crime, gold around opportunity. Blackthorn Holdings glowed like a dying star, massive, bright, rotten inside. Amelia returned with a new report. Damian has announced a press conference. He plans to unveil Northgate as his greatest acquisition. When? This afternoon. Arrange a seat for me. You want to attend? Not as Ethan Cross. The system opened the identity structure of Raven Crown Capital. Its controlling owner remained sealed. Its public representative position was vacant. Ethan selected an old subsidiary name, Crown Strategic Advisory. He created a temporary executive credential, clean history, private background, no photograph. Amelia smiled. You intend to stand in the same room. I intend to applaud. At the press conference, Damian stood beneath a wall of flashing screens. Northgate's symbol appeared beside Blackthorn's crest. Sophia sat in the front row. Martin, Laura, and Victor occupied the seats beside her. Reporters filled the hall. Near the back sat Ethan. A dark coat covered his frame. A narrow pair of glasses changed the shape of his face. A healing strip concealed the cut on his cheek. Nobody looked twice. Why would they? They expected Ethan Cross to be hiding in shame. Damian stepped to the podium. Today, Blackthorn Holdings enters a new age. Applause thundered. He spoke of courage, vision, destiny. He claimed the Northgate acquisition would triple production and make Blackthorn untouchable. Sophia gazed at him with worshipful eyes. Ethan applauded with everyone else, slowly, politely. The system displayed a countdown only he could see. Northgate primary cooling system failure approaching. The hidden maintenance reports had been accurate. The old machinery was already collapsing. Damian's new empire had begun to bleed before the ink dried. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Blackthorn, concerns have emerged regarding Northgate's environmental liabilities. Were these investigated? Damian smiled. Our review was exhaustive. Laura Crane nodded confidently. Every facility passed inspection. Ethan watched the system mark her statement. Public falsehood recorded. Legal exposure increased. Another reporter stood. Are rumors true that Raven Crown Capital financed this acquisition? They did, Damian said. They recognized strength. Ethan's smile deepened. Damian looked across the audience. For one moment, his gaze passed over Ethan. It paused. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, instinct, fear? Then Sophia whispered his name. Damian looked away. The moment died. Ethan lowered his head and continued applauding. His phone vibrated silently. Northgate factory cooling failure confirmed. Production halted. Estimated damage rising. Worker panic detected. Damian continued speaking. He promised endless growth while alarms began screaming hundreds of miles away. He praised flawless preparation while emergency crews ran through smoke. He called Northgate a crown jewel while its foundations shifted above unstable ground. Ethan watched him shine. Let him shine. The brighter the pride, the darker the fall. Another message appeared. Northgate management requests emergency replacement components. Supplier approval required. The supplier belonged to Ethan. He reviewed the request. The price offered was generous. He rejected it. A second request arrived. Higher price. A third. Desperate. Rejected. Then a private message from Damian's office reached the supplier. Name your price. Ethan typed a response. We do not sell to companies under unstable leadership. He sent it anonymously. On stage, an assistant approached Damian and whispered into his ear. Damian's confident expression tightened, only for an instant. Then he returned to the microphone. Please excuse me. A minor operational matter requires my attention. He left beneath polite applause. Sophia followed. So did Martin, Laura, and Victor. The reporters began murmuring. Ethan remained seated. The system pulsed again. Poison accepted. Enemy has claimed hidden disaster. Critical pressure phase initiated. Ethan rose and buttoned his coat. Around him, people praised Damian's victory. They had no idea the victory was already rotting in his hands. Outside, black cars rushed from the building. Damian was heading toward Northgate, toward smoke, toward failure, toward the gift Ethan had so generously allowed him to steal. Amelia waited beside the exit. What now? Ethan watched Damian's convoy disappear into traffic. Now he pours the poison himself. And you? Ethan's eyes reflected the Blackthorn crest above the entrance. I keep buying the cup. Smoke swallowed the Northgate horizon. The first factory had stopped breathing. Its cooling towers coughed black vapor into the afternoon sky. Emergency sirens screamed across the industrial district. Workers poured through the gates with ash on their faces and fear in their eyes. Inside the command center, Damian Blackthorn tore a headset from an engineer and hurled it against the wall. Turn the lines back on. The chief engineer stared at him. We cannot. Damian stepped closer. What did you say? The primary cooling array collapsed. The backup system failed under pressure. If we restart production now, the core furnaces may rupture. Damian's face hardened, then replaced the array. We need specialized components. Buy them. The supplier refused. Damian looked toward Martin Shaw. Martin immediately lowered his head over a tablet. We offered double. Offer more. We already did. Then buy the supplier. Martin swallowed. We tried. Damian's eyes narrowed. And the ownership changed last night. To whom? We do not know. Damian turned toward Laura Crane. She stood near the glass wall, pale and silent. You approved of the operational review. Laura forced herself to speak. The previous management concealed the severity of the damage. You signed the report. I signed based on the documents provided. You certified the facilities as safe. The numbers were manipulated before they reached me. Damian crossed the room in 3 slow steps. He stopped inches from her face. Then why are you still speaking as if this is someone else's failure? Laura's lips parted. No answer came. Sophia stood beside the main display. She watched smoke crawl across the factory feed. The confidence she had worn at the press conference was gone. Can the acquisition be reversed, she asked. Every executive turned toward her. Damian did not. No, his voice was quiet. Sophia glanced at the legal counsel. The man looked away. Damian finally faced her. You witnessed the agreement. I only asked whether there was an exit. You sound nervous. The press is already outside. Then smile for them. A violent tremor shook the building. Ceiling panels rattled. A deep metallic groan rolled through the factory complex. The chief engineer looked toward the monitors, his face drained of color. Foundation movement. Victor Hale rushed to the terminal. That is impossible. The engineer pointed at a red line spreading beneath the site map. The southern production wing is sinking. Damian grabbed Victor by the collar. You certified the land. Victor's voice cracked. The geological report showed stable ground. Did you inspect it? I reviewed the documents. Did you inspect it? Victor looked toward Laura. Laura stepped backward. Damian released him with disgust. One by one, the people who had celebrated beside him began searching for someone else to blame. Martin accused Northgate management. Laura accused the consulting firm. Victor accused the previous board. Sophia accused the legal team. Nobody spoke about Ethan. Not yet. His name remained buried beneath their confidence. Far from the smoke, Ethan stood inside a silent underground command hall. The chamber had once belonged to a failed financial exchange. Raven Crown had purchased it years ago and forgotten it beneath a shell company. Now walls of glass displayed every artery of Ethan's growing empire. Factories, warehouses, media firms, security contractors, legal offices, data centers, transport routes, debt portfolios. Each acquisition glowed as a node of pale light. At the center stood Ethan. Amelia Roth watched from the upper platform. Around her, analysts moved without wasted motion. They did not know the full extent of Ethan's system. They did not need to. They only knew that every impossible instruction he gave produced profit. Every neglected company he chose became valuable. Every piece of hidden debt turned into leverage. Every enemy he ignored weakened themselves. Ethan opened the corporate market. The system responded. Northgate collapse has increased distress across connected assets. Emergency discounts available. He purchased a failing concrete supplier whose products were used in Blackthorn expansion projects. He acquired a logistics company carrying Northgate replacement machinery. He bought the private debt of 3 subcontractors now demanding payment from Damian. He took control of the temporary housing network where displaced workers would soon be sent. Then he paused over a small biotechnology firm. Its public reputation was worthless. Its accounts were nearly empty. Its only valuable asset was a regenerative compound designed to repair industrial burns. The formula had failed commercial approval because the company lacked funding. The system revealed the truth. The compound worked. The trial data had been buried by a larger medical corporation that wanted the patent. Ethan purchased the firm. He ordered immediate production. Amelia descended the stairs. You are buying medical stock while Blackthorn is collapsing? Workers will be injured. Damian will need treatment. The workers will receive it. And Damian? Ethan closed the file. He can purchase bandages. Amelia studied him. You are building goodwill. No. Ethan turned toward the city map. I am buying loyalty before anyone realizes it is for sale. Within hours, unmarked medical vans arrived near Northgate. They carried burn treatments, water, food, and protective masks. The supplies bore the symbol of a new relief foundation, Crown Aid. No cameras had been invited. No speeches were given. Workers received help while Blackthorn executives argued behind locked doors. Rumors spread anyway. Someone was helping. Someone had prepared. Someone had arrived before Damian. By nightfall, the workers stopped cursing Northgate. They cursed Blackthorn. Ethan watched the anger grow. The system pulsed. Public loyalty acquired. Worker trust rising. Hidden empire influence expanding. New reward unlocked. Sovereign recruitment. A list of names appeared. Engineers discarded by Blackthorn. Researchers cheated out of patents. Managers blamed for executive failures. Programmers whose projects Damian had stolen. Accountants who had discovered fraud and been silenced. All of them had one thing in common. Ethan knew their value. Because he had once been one of them, he sent private invitations. No promises of family. No speeches about loyalty. Clean contracts. Real equity. Protection from retaliation. Absolute reward for results. The first to arrive was Naomi Ward, former Blackthorn systems architect. Damian had fired her after stealing the forecasting platform she designed. She entered the command hall carrying a worn laptop and a face carved by exhaustion. Ethan met her at the center platform. She stared at him. You are supposed to be hiding. So are you. Her eyes moved across the walls. What is this, a company? This is not a company, not yet. Naomi looked at the network, then at Ethan. You want revenge on Blackthorn. I want ownership. That is revenge with paperwork. No. Ethan's expression remained calm. Revenge ends when the enemy suffers. Ownership begins when suffering becomes profitable. Naomi laughed once. A hard, disbelieving sound. Then she placed her laptop on the table. What do you want me to build? A system that can predict supply collapse before the market sees it. That would require access to private shipping data. Ethan opened a screen. I own the shipping data. Then I need energy usage. He opened another. Insurance claims. Another screen. Already acquired. Naomi's laughter died. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not with warmth, with hunger. I can build it. Then build something Damian cannot live without. The second recruit was Marcus Vane, a former security commander. Damian had sacrificed his team during a political scandal and accused Marcus of negligence. Marcus arrived with a scar across his throat and no patience for ceremony. He looked Ethan up and down. You do not look like a king. I am not asking you to kneel. What do you want, my people? From Blackthorn? From anyone? Marcus crossed his arms. What do I get? Authority, money, enough, freedom, complete. And when I disagree with you, you say it to my face. Marcus watched him. Damian had demanded obedience. Ethan offered responsibility. That difference was enough. Marcus accepted. The third recruit was Evelyn Frost, a contract attorney so ruthless that entire firms refused to face her in arbitration. Damian had destroyed her career after she discovered hidden ownership fraud inside Blackthorn Holdings. She entered wearing white gloves and carrying a folder of sealed evidence. I know why you bought Ravencrown, she said. Ethan did not ask how. You also know Damian killed my father, I suspected. You kept the evidence. I kept everything. She placed the folder before him. Inside were copies of unauthorized transfers, witness statements, and private orders connecting Damian to the sabotage. Ethan read them without visible emotion. Evelyn watched his face. You are calmer than I expected. Anger wastes detail. You intend to kill him? No. Her eyes narrowed. Then why bring me here? To make sure he survives every legal consequence. For the first time, Evelyn smiled. She joined. More followed. An engineer who could turn scrap into military-grade machinery. A chef who had built underground food networks during regional shortages. A property developer who understood how to convert abandoned tunnels into protected communities. A former intelligence analyst who could map corporate relationships from a single transaction. A young programmer mocked for creating a useless inventory skill. Ethan bought the programmer's company for less than the cost of a luxury watch. Then the system revealed the skill's hidden potential. The inventory platform could track not only products but ownership chains, concealed storage, dormant licenses, and forgotten contractual claims. What Damian's experts dismissed as useless became the nervous system of Ethan's empire. Warehouses connected. Medical stock moved automatically. Food reserves balanced themselves. Fuel routes shifted before shortages formed. Every discarded tool became lethal in Ethan's hands. Every mocked employee became powerful under his command. The underground exchange transformed. Empty corridors became offices. Old vaults became archives. Abandoned server rooms became intelligence centers. A sealed maintenance district beneath the city became a protected residential zone. The best engineers reinforced the walls. The best architects built hidden entrances. The best farmers designed vertical food chambers. The best medics established clinics. The best security teams created layered defenses. No one called it a bunker. They called it Crown City. It had no public address. No sign. Only purpose. Inside Crown City, nobody worked for promises. They received shares, protection, authority, a future they could touch. Ethan walked through the central market as new lights came alive overhead. Workers greeted him with quiet respect, not fear, not worship. They had all been betrayed by someone like Damian. They understood Ethan without needing speeches. Amelia followed beside him. You have built a private economy beneath the city, a small one. It controls food, medicine, data, logistics, debt, and security. Then it is incomplete. What is missing? Energy. The system opened a new target, Helios Grid, a neglected energy storage company. Its battery design was considered unstable. Its founder had disappeared from public life after investors humiliated him. The system analyzed the patent. The battery was not unstable. The testing equipment had been sabotaged. The technology could power Crown City independently. Ethan acquired the company. He found the founder living in an old workshop surrounded by broken prototypes. Dr. Adrian Soul looked at the acquisition contract and laughed bitterly. You bought a corpse. Ethan placed the corrected test results before him. No. Adrian's hands trembled as he read. This cannot be right. It is. They ruined me. Yes. They called me a fraud. Yes. Adrian looked up. What do you want? Build it again. With what money? Mine. What laboratory? Yours. What happens when it fails? Ethan's gaze remained steady. Then you explain why and begin again. Adrian stared at him as though those words were more valuable than gold. He signed. Weeks of work compressed into days. The system optimized every process. Naomi's forecasting platform predicted shortages. The inventory network directed materials. Ethan's hidden asset radar found abandoned equipment. Adrian rebuilt the battery. When the first core awakened, Crown City's lights burned brighter. The entire underground district became independent from the public grid. The system responded. Self-sufficient empire established. Corporate sovereign rank increased. Absolute domain privilege unlocked. Within owned territory, host receives enhanced information control, resource efficiency, and defensive authority. Ethan stood before the energy core. Silver light reflected across his face. Around him, engineers cheered. Adrian cried without hiding it. Marcus watched the entrances. Naomi monitored the grid. Evelyn prepared contracts for new expansion. Amelia approached Ethan. You gave them everything Damian refused to give you. No. What did you give them? A price for their value. Above the city, Damian's new empire rotted. Northgate production remained frozen. Replacement components were unavailable. Insurers delayed payouts. Subcontractors demanded immediate payment. Workers refused dangerous assignments. Environmental agencies received anonymous evidence. Reporters began questioning Laura's safety reports. Victor's geological certification leaked. Martin's financing projections collapsed under scrutiny. Sophia spent each morning smiling before cameras and each night screaming at assistants. Damian blamed everyone. He fired managers, threatened engineers, bribed regulators, purchased favorable headlines. Every solution created another debt. Every debt was quietly purchased by Raven Crown. Still, Damian believed he was winning. He announced a recovery plan. He claimed Northgate would reopen soon. He blamed sabotage by foreign competitors. The board applauded because they were too afraid not to. Sophia stood beside him in another expensive dress. She told reporters that Damian had transformed crisis into opportunity. Behind the cameras, she received a private message. Her personal luxury accounts had been frozen. The properties Damian promised her had been pledged as collateral. The wedding venue had not been paid. She confronted him that night. You said the Northgate deal would make us untouchable. It will. When? When I fix what incompetent people broke. The bank called me. Damian looked up from his desk. Why? My accounts are restricted. Temporary. You transferred my trust assets for liquidity. You did not ask me. He slowly stood. I gave you everything you have. Sophia's anger faltered. You gave me promises. Damian crossed the room, and you gave me Ethan's passwords. Silence filled the office. His smile was ugly. Do not pretend this began as love. Sophia's face hardened. Without me, you could not have framed him. Without me, you would still be waiting for him to afford a wedding. They stared at each other. The first crack opened between them. Ethan watched through the old security feed. He said nothing. The system marked the moment. Enemy alliance stability declining, mutual distrust increasing, dopamine loop established. Each Blackthorn loss increases crown acquisition value. Each crown acquisition increases Blackthorn dependency. Ethan closed the feed. The loop was perfect. Damian sold assets to cover Northgate. Ethan bought them. Damian borrowed money to recover. Ethan bought the debt. Damian fired talent to reduce costs. Ethan recruited them. Damian suppressed bad news. Ethan acquired the outlets. Every desperate move made Ethan stronger. Every gain made Damian more desperate. Weeks passed. Crown City expanded beneath abandoned transit lines. Its clinics treated workers Blackthorn had discarded. Its schools trained technicians in skills corporations no longer valued. Its markets sold food at stable prices during shortages. Its security network kept crime away. People began whispering about the hidden city, a place where contracts were honored, a place where talent was rewarded, a place where powerful men could not steal without consequence. Nobody knew Ethan ruled it. To the public, he remained disgraced, a fugitive executive, a failed man, a name spoken with contempt. He preserved the illusion carefully. Occasionally, he allowed blurry photographs to appear. Ethan entering a cheap motel. Ethan wearing an old coat. Ethan eating alone in a roadside diner, all staged. Each image made Damian laugh. Each insult increased the system's discount. Sophia saw one photograph during breakfast. Ethan sat beside a fogged window with a cracked cup before him. She stared longer than she intended. Damian noticed. Do you miss poverty? She locked the screen. I was wondering why he has not begged. He will. He has been silent for weeks. Silence is all he owns. Sophia looked toward the city. For reasons she could not explain, the photograph frightened her. Ethan did not look broken. He looked patient. That night, Damian received an invitation. Black envelope. No sender. Inside was a single line. Raven Crown Capital request your presence at the Sovereign Development Gala. Damian smiled, at last. The hidden creditor was ready to show its face. He believed the gala would secure more funding. He believed Raven Crown admired him. He believed Northgate's crisis had proven his strength. Sophia read the invitation over his shoulder. Who owns Raven Crown? Nobody important. They financed Northgate. Because they needed access to me. She touched the silver seal. Something cold moved through her. Perhaps we should investigate before attending. Damian laughed. You are becoming timid. I am becoming careful. Careful people wait outside while bold people enter. He tossed the invitation onto the desk. We will attend. Far below the city, Ethan stood before a completed throne room carved from the old Central Exchange. He had not ordered a throne. His people had built one anyway. Not from gold. From black steel taken from abandoned Blackthorn factories. Behind it rose the symbol of Raven Crown. Amelia held a guest list. Damian accepted. Of course, Sophia is attending. Of course, the entire Blackthorn board requested invitations. Ethan looked across the hall. Long tables waited beneath silver lights. Every chair had been placed with precision. Every camera belonged to him. Every door answered to Marcus. Every contract had been prepared by Evelyn. Every screen was connected to Naomi's network. Above them, Damian still believed Blackthorn Tower was the center of the world. He did not know the real empire had grown beneath his feet. Ethan sat upon the black steel throne. The system shimmered before him. Hidden empire complete. Enemy remains trapped in false prosperity. Final storm approaching. Ethan rested one hand against the arm of the throne. His smile was calm. Damian had stolen a woman. Damian had bought applause. Damian had claimed a poisoned company and called it victory. Let him keep dreaming. The invitation was not a peace offering. It was a door, and once Damian walked through it, every illusion he owned would begin to die. The Sovereign Development Gala began beneath a sky without stars. Black cars descended one after another into the private avenue beneath the city. Damian arrived first. His convoy carried directors, attorneys, security officers, and enough arrogance to fill the underground district before the doors opened. He stepped from the car wearing a midnight suit stitched by a tailor whose entire company had been purchased by Raven Crown the week before. Sophia emerged beside him in a silver gown. The diamonds around her throat had been pledged against Blackthorn debt. She did not know. Martin Shaw followed, sweating beneath his collar. Laura Crane walked behind him with a smile so rigid it looked painful. Victor Hale kept checking his phone. Every message carried worse news. Northgate's southern wing had sunk further. Workers had abandoned another plant. A regulatory task force had entered the main offices. Blackthorn shares were falling in foreign markets. Victor locked the screen before Damian could see. The entrance to Crown City rose before them. Black steel doors, no visible guards, no company name. Only a silver crown carved above the arch. Damian looked around with contempt. This is where Raven Crown hides? Sophia said nothing. She felt the silence, not emptiness. The air itself seemed to know who belonged there. The doors opened. Warm silver light spilled across the avenue. Rows of attendants bowed. Damian smiled. He mistook discipline for submission. The guests entered a vast hall built from the bones of the old financial exchange. Towering screens displayed city maps, energy networks, shipping routes, food reserves, medical supply chains, and corporate ownership webs. None showed the full picture. Only enough to impress, only enough to tempt. Damian slowed. He recognized several companies. A transport group Blackthorn had tried to buy, a medical supplier that had refused his calls, the component manufacturer holding Northgate's recovery hostage, a media network that had recently stopped publishing his statements. Their symbols glowed beneath the Raven Crown crest. His smile faded. Martin stepped closer. How many subsidiaries do they control? Damian's voice remained low. Not enough to matter. Sophia looked toward a wall of moving data. Blackthorn routes appeared among them. Not highlighted. Not honored. Measured, she touched Damian's arm. We should leave. He pulled away. Because someone owns a few suppliers, because they know too much. They invited us because they need us. Sophia watched silent workers cross the upper balconies. Nobody stared at Damian. Nobody rushed to greet him. Nobody behaved as though the city's most famous executive had arrived. That frightened her more than hostility would have. The gala floor opened beyond the entrance hall. Hundreds of guests filled the chamber. Bankers, engineers, investors, scientists, officials, union leaders, former executives. Many had once been crushed beneath Blackthorn's expansion. Now they wore the silver emblem of Raven Crown. Damian recognized Naomi Ward near the central platform. His expression twisted. "You," Naomi turned. For years, Damian had remembered her as exhausted and desperate. Now she stood in a tailored suit with authority in her posture and calm in her eyes. "Mr. Blackthorn, you work here? I build here. You stole company technology." "No," Naomi smiled. "You stole mine." Damian stepped closer. "You should be grateful I allowed your career to survive. You fired me. And yet here you are." "Yes." Her gaze moved across Crown City. "Here I am." Damian heard the difference. She was not defending herself. She was measuring him. He looked beyond her and saw Marcus Vane beside the security ring. Another discarded dog. Marcus did not move. Damian laughed. "You people collect failures." Marcus answered without raising his voice. "Failures built the room you are standing in." Damian's jaw tightened. Before he could respond, the lights dimmed. A deep tone rolled through the hall. Conversations stopped. The main screen awakened. Raven Crown's symbol spread across it. A woman stepped onto the upper platform, Amelia Roth. Several older directors froze. They knew her. They remembered the rescue agreements from years ago. They remembered the dormant creditor whose name had vanished beneath layers of paperwork. Amelia raised one hand. "Welcome to Crown Cities. Not wild. Not forced." Damian waited for his name to be announced. It was not. Amelia spoke about the future of energy, medicine, logistics, and industrial protection. She praised builders who had been discarded by unstable corporations. She praised workers who had survived executive greed. She praised contracts that rewarded value rather than obedience. Every sentence cut toward Blackthorn without naming it. Damian smiled through clenched teeth. Sophia watched him. A pulse moved in his temple. Then Amelia turned toward the darkest end of the hall. "Tonight, our founder will address you." The chamber went silent. A black steel platform rose from beneath the floor. Upon it stood a throne, and upon the throne sat Ethan Cross, no disguise. No healing strip, no bowed head. He wore a simple black suit. No diamonds, no gold. Only the silver Raven Crown emblem at his collar. His cheek still carried the faint scar from Damian's champagne glass. Sophia stopped breathing. Martin whispered a curse. Laura stumbled backward. Victor dropped his phone. Damian did not move. For several heartbeats, his face remained empty. His mind refused the image before him. Then laughter burst from his throat. Too loud. "This is a joke." Nobody joined him. Ethan looked down from the platform. His expression held no rage, no triumph, only mild attention. The same attention a buyer gave damaged property. Damian pointed toward him. "You expect me to believe this criminal owns Raven Crown?" Amelia stepped forward. "Ethan Cross is the controlling owner of Raven Crown Capital and every asset represented in this hall." Martin's knees weakened. Laura's lips began trembling. Victor opened the corporate records on his phone. The files were public now. Ownership transfers, voting rights, debt claims, contractual authority. Every line carried Ethan's name. Sophia stared at the screen. Her diamonds suddenly felt heavy around her throat. Damian climbed the first step toward the platform. Security did not stop him. Ethan had ordered them not to. "You bought this with what?" Damian demanded. "You had $1. Ethan rested one hand against the throne. "Yes." A faint ripple moved through the crowd. Damian's face darkened. "You were bankrupt." "Yes." "You were under investigation." "Yes." "You had nothing." Ethan's mouth curved. "You left me $1. The screens changed. Raven Crown's acquisition history appeared. The forgotten voting rights, the emergency financing, the Northgate debt, the component supplier, the insurance contracts, the logistics companies, the media networks, the medical foundation, the energy grid. The Blackthorn board watched their world rearrange itself. Every escape route belonged to Ethan. Every lifeline had been purchased before they reached for it. Damian stared at the Northgate financing agreement. Understanding finally struck him. "You approved the loan." "Yes." "You knew the factories would fail." "Yes." "You let me buy it." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "You seemed eager." Laughter moved through the hall. Not loud. Worse. Controlled amusement. The kind Damian had once enjoyed while Ethan knelt on marble. Damian turned toward the guests. "Do you know who this man is? He stole from Blackthorn. He betrayed the company that created him." Evelyn Frost stepped from the legal delegation. She wore white gloves. Her smile was merciless. "No court has accepted those claims." The evidence is overwhelming. The evidence was forged. The screen changed again. Sophia's access logs appeared. Martin's authorization codes. Laura's altered reports. Victor's hidden transfers. Damian's private instructions. Each lie unfolded in clean lines. The crowd began murmuring. Sophia's face turned white. Damian looked at her. You said the files were clean. She backed away. They were. You used his home network. You told me to. The words escaped before she could stop them. Silence struck the hall. Damian's eyes widened. Sophia realized what she had confessed. Reporters raised their devices. Cameras turned toward her. She covered her mouth. Ethan watched without reaction. The system pulsed before him. Public betrayal exposed. Enemy unity collapsing. Final disaster threshold reached. Then every screen flashed red. An alarm rolled through Crown City. Not a drill. Not part of the presentation. Naomi turned toward the central display. Her hands moved across the controls. Northgate primary furnace rupture. The hall erupted. Victor stared at the disaster map. A section of the industrial district vanished beneath a red bloom. The unstable foundation had collapsed. The damaged furnace had broken through the lower structure. Fire spread through chemical storage lines. Toxic smoke moved toward worker housing. Emergency systems failed one after another. The disaster Damian had purchased had finally opened its mouth. Guests shouted. Officials reached for phones. Blackthorn directors began running toward the exits. Marcus sealed the outer doors. Panic struck them harder. Damian spun toward him. Open those doors. Marcus ignored him. Amelia spoke into the hall. Crown City emergency protocol is active. Remain calm. Damian laughed wildly. You trapped us. Ethan stood from the throne. No. The main screen displayed the toxic cloud. I protected the city from you. Northgate alarms screamed through every broadcast channel. Reports arrived faster than officials could read them. Chemical fire. Structural collapse. Worker housing threatened. Public grid failure. Water contamination risk. The entire district faced destruction. Damian grabbed Martin. Call the emergency contractors. Martin's hands shook. They are not answering. Call the military. They require government authorization. Call the energy grid. Sophia stared at him. Helios controls the backup supply. Damian looked toward Ethan. Helios belonged to Raven Crown. The medical fleets belonged to Raven Crown. The evacuation buses belonged to Raven Crown. The protective equipment belonged to Raven Crown. The disaster mapping network belonged to Raven Crown. Everything needed to save Northgate belonged to the man they had thrown into the rain. Damian's voice became hoarse. Send your resources. Ethan descended from the platform. Step by step, the crowd parted before him. Why? People will die. Your workers? Damian hesitated. That hesitation was captured by every camera. Ethan's eyes cooled. They stopped being your workers when you abandoned them. He turned toward Naomi. Begin full evacuation. She activated the network. The hall's displays transformed. Crown buses moved through protected routes. Marcus's teams entered the toxic zone. Helios batteries restored emergency power. Crown aid clinics opened across the district. Medical drones carried burn treatment over blocked roads. Adrian Sol's energy cores powered the containment barriers. The inventory system rerouted masks, water, and medicine before shortages formed. Every discarded person Damian had mocked now moved with impossible precision. The empire Ethan built in darkness rose in a single motion. Damian watched his catastrophe crushed by the people he had thrown away. The toxic cloud reached the first containment line. Helios towers awakened. Silver barriers roared into life. Wind systems changed direction. Chemical suppression units fired from Crown transport vehicles. The burning storage lines vanished beneath a storm of neutralizing foam. The collapsing furnace sank toward an underground fuel conduit. One rupture would ignite the entire district. Naomi shouted from the platform, pressure breach approaching. Engineers called for evacuation. Ethan did not move. The system opened a final emergency purchase. Northgate Subterranean Shutdown Authority. Original owner. Blackthorn Holdings. Distress price, $1. Ethan smiled. Damian saw it, the same smile from the ballroom. The smile he had failed to understand. Ethan approved the purchase. Ownership transferred. Absolute domain extended. The buried control system awakened. For years, Northgate executives had believed the shutdown network was dead. It had only been locked behind forgotten ownership rights. Ethan raised one hand. The entire industrial district lost power. Furnaces died, fuel valves sealed. Chemical gates closed. Emergency walls rose from beneath the ground. The fire collapsed inward. The red bloom on the screen shrank, then vanished. Silence filled the hall. One command. One purchase. One man. An industrial disaster that could have destroyed half the city had been crushed before the Blackthorn board finished blaming one another. The crowd stared at Ethan, some with gratitude, some with fear, some with awe. Damian stood in the center of them, smaller than he had ever been. His empire had caused the disaster. Ethan's empire had ended it. Sophia looked from the screens to Ethan. Her lips trembled. The man she had called poor controlled the energy beneath her feet. The man she had called useless commanded the people saving the city. The man she had abandoned for a larger diamond had bought the company that purchased the diamond. Martin sank into a chair. Laura began crying. Victor whispered that none of this was possible. Damian's face twitched, then cracked. He rushed toward Ethan. Marcus moved. Ethan raised one finger. Marcus stopped. Damian reached Ethan and grabbed his lapels. This. Ethan looked down at his hands. Yes, you destroyed Northgate. No. Ethan lifted his gaze. I let you own what you stole. Damian's grip weakened. You think this makes you better than me? No. The cameras moved closer. Ethan's voice remained almost gentle. It makes me your owner. The main screen changed one final time. Raven Crown activated its dormant voting rights. Debt conversion executed. Emergency creditor authority confirmed. Board control transferred. Blackthorn Holdings controlling ownership acquired. Damian stared at the words. His fingers slipped from Ethan's suit. Around the hall, every Blackthorn director received the same notification. Their voting power was suspended. Their accounts were under review. Their offices were locked. Their authority had ended. Damian looked back at the man he had thrown onto the pavement. His lips moved. No sound came. Ethan stepped past him. The crowd followed Ethan with their eyes. Nobody looked at Damian anymore. That was the deepest wound. Not the lost company. Not the collapsing fortune. Not the coming investigation. Irrelevance. Damian Blackthorn stood beneath the Raven Crown crest and realized the truth. The man he had treated like a servant had not returned for revenge. He had returned with a receipt. Blackthorn Tower no longer recognized Damian Blackthorn. The doors refused his fingerprint. The executive elevator rejected his voice. The private security system displayed a single message: access revoked. Damian struck the panel with his fist. Again, blood appeared across his knuckles. The doors remained closed. Behind him, employees gathered in silence. People who had once lowered their heads when he passed now watched without fear. Some held termination notices, some carried boxes, some wore Crown City identification badges. Damian turned toward them. What are you looking at? Nobody answered. His rage sharpened. I built this company. A young accountant stepped forward. No. Her voice shook, but she did not retreat. Ethan did. The corridor became very still. Damian stared at her. She had once apologized for breathing too loudly near his office. Now she met his eyes. He raised a hand. Marcus Vane caught his wrist before the blow landed. Damian had not seen him approach. Marcus squeezed once. Bones shifted beneath skin. Damian dropped to one knee with a strangled cry. Marcus released him. Touch another employee, he said, and the next door you enter will belong to a hospital. The workers watched Damian kneel. No one laughed. That would have been kinder. They simply turned away, one by one, as though he had already disappeared. Across the tower, Blackthorn executives lost their kingdoms. Martin Shaw arrived at his office to find Evelyn Frost seated behind his desk. His drawers had been emptied. His private account records were displayed across the wall. Bribes, hidden commissions, secret payments from competitors, funds stolen from employee pensions. Martin stopped in the doorway. Evelyn looked up. You are late. This is my office. No, she closed a file. It was your crime scene. Martin swallowed. I can explain. I know, she smiled. That is why the recording equipment is active. Martin looked around. Every camera was aimed at him. His face collapsed. Laura Crane fled toward the airport. Her passport failed at the departure gate. Her accounts had been frozen by court order. Her legal team stopped answering. Her luggage was searched. Inside, investigators found copies of falsified safety reports she had planned to destroy overseas. She began screaming that Damian had forced her. The officers asked why her signature appeared on every page. Laura had no answer. Victor Hale reached his countryside estate before sunset. He discovered workers removing the gates. The property no longer belonged to him. The mortgage had been purchased through a Raven Crown subsidiary months earlier. His cars were repossessed. His art collection was seized. The private bunker beneath the estate was sealed. Victor stood in the rain while men carried his life past him. He called Damian. Damian did not answer. He called Martin. Martin was in custody. He called Laura. Her phone had been taken. Victor looked toward the empty road. For the first time in decades, nobody came when he demanded help. Sophia returned to the penthouse she believed Damian had given her. The elevator opened. Every room was empty. The paintings were gone. The furniture was gone. The wine cellar was gone. Only a white envelope remained on the marble table. She opened it. The penthouse belonged to a holding company owned by Raven Crown. Her clothes had been purchased through Blackthorn expense accounts. Her jewelry had been pledged as collateral. Her luxury vehicles had never been registered in her name. Damian had given her nothing. Not the apartment. Not the diamonds. Not security. Only access temporary. Revocable. Her phone rang. She answered immediately. Damian? A bank representative spoke instead. Her remaining accounts had been frozen pending fraud investigation. The call ended. Another arrived. The wedding venue canceled. Another. The designer demanded the return of borrowed dresses. Another. A magazine withdrew her interview. Another. Her family asked whether the rumors were true. Sophia threw the phone across the room. It struck the wall and shattered. She stood alone in the empty penthouse, surrounded by the echo of a life that had never belonged to her. Then she saw someone reflected in the dark window. Ethan. Not physically. Only the memory of him. Carrying grocery bags up 4 flights of stairs. Repairing a broken heater through the night. Saving money in envelopes. Smiling when she complained. Promising that one day they would have a home. She had called him small. She had mistaken patience for weakness. She had traded a man building something real for a man renting an illusion. Her knees buckled. She sank onto the marble floor. The same kind of floor where Ethan's blood had fallen. For the first time, Sophia understood what she had stolen from herself. The invitation arrived the next morning. Black card. Silver seal. One sentence. The controlling owner of Blackthorn Holdings requests your presence in the executive dining hall. Sophia came, so did Damian. So did every executive still free enough to walk. They entered through separate doors. No one spoke. The dining hall had been transformed. The old Blackthorn crest was gone. Raven Crown watched from the wall. A long table stood beneath the windows. At its head sat Ethan. He wore black, simple, untouched. A glass of red wine rested in his hand. Behind him, the city stretched beneath the morning light. Amelia stood to his right. Evelyn stood to his left. Marcus guarded the doors. Naomi watched from the upper control platform. Martin entered with legal escorts. Laura arrived under supervised release. Victor came wearing yesterday's clothes. Sophia entered last. She had no diamonds now, no silver gown, no cameras waiting to praise her. Damian looked toward Ethan. Hatred burned across his face. Fear lived beneath it. Ethan gestured toward the empty chairs. Sit. Nobody moved. Marcus took one step forward. The silence tasted like iron. Ethan lifted his glass. He studied the wine for a moment. Then he drank. Damian gripped the edge of the table. You brought us here to gloat. Ethan set the glass down. No, then what do you want? Closure. Sophia flinched. The words sounded too final. Ethan looked toward Martin. Do you remember what you said when security dragged me through the ballroom? Martin's lips trembled. No, I do. Ethan's voice remained calm. You said even prison was too expensive for a beggar like me. Martin began shaking his head. I was drunk. You were delighted. I did not understand what was happening. You understood enough to laugh. Martin pushed his chair back. Ethan, please. I have children. You stole from their pensions. I can repay it. With what? Martin's mouth opened. Nothing came. Ethan turned toward Laura. You called my work disposable. Tears gathered in her eyes. I was under pressure. You presented my projects as your own. Damian demanded results. You gave him mine. I had no choice. Ethan glanced toward the door. You always had a choice. Laura began crying. I am sorry, no. His expression did not change. You are afraid. He looked toward Victor. You told the board I lacked the breeding to lead. Victor's face twisted. I was protecting the company. You buried reports about dead workers. I was following policy. You signed their death certificates with silence. Victor lowered his head. Ethan's gaze moved to Damian. The room seemed to contract. Damian forced a smile. You think repeating old insults makes you powerful? No. Ethan reached for his wine. Buying your company did that. Damian lunged to his feet. I made you. Ethan took voice rose. I found you. I hired you. I gave you access. Every skill you have was sharpened inside my company. Mine. My company. Damian's face reddened. You were nothing before Blackthorn. Ethan placed the glass down, and now Blackthorn is nothing without me. Damian pointed at him. You stole it. The accusation hung in the air. Ethan almost smiled. I purchased the debts you created. I activated the rights you ignored. I acquired the assets you abandoned. I recruited the talent you discarded. I saved the workers you endangered. He leaned back. You call it theft because losing is the only transaction you understand. Damian's hand trembled. Then Sophia stood, every eye turned toward her. She took one step toward Ethan, then another. Marcus watched, but Ethan did not stop her. Sophia reached the end of the table. Her face was pale, her voice was barely audible. Ethan. He looked at her. She had dreamed of this moment through the night. She had prepared words. Tender words, careful words, words about mistakes. Confusion, fear, pressure. Now they died beneath his gaze. Still, she forced herself to continue. I know I hurt you. Ethan said nothing. I know what I did was unforgivable. Then why are you asking? Her breath caught. Sophia's eyes filled. Because we had years together. We had time together. That is what I mean, no. His voice remained soft. You spent years waiting to trade me for something more expensive. That is not true. You helped frame me. I was afraid of Damian. You gave him my passwords before you were afraid of him. Sophia's shoulders shook. He promised me a future. So did I. You were taking too long. The room froze. Sophia realized what she had said. The old contempt had slipped through the tears. Ethan saw it. So did everyone else. She dropped to her knees. The movement was sudden, ugly, desperate. Her hands reached toward him. Marcus shifted. Ethan raised one finger. Sophia stopped inches from his shoe. Please, she whispered. I made a mistake. Ethan looked down at her. The ballroom returned in his memory. Her hand across his face. Her voice. Stop staring at me like that. You are embarrassing yourself. He repeated the words exactly. Sophia broke. Her forehead touched the floor. I was cruel. Yes, I was blind. Yes, I loved you. No, she looked up. Tears streaked her face. You cannot know that. Ethan's eyes were empty. I know what you chose when you believed I was powerless. Sophia crawled closer. I will do anything. Damian laughed bitterly. There she is. Sophia turned toward him. Be quiet. You betrayed him for me. Now you betray me for him. You used me, you volunteered. She rose and struck Damian. The blow cracked through the hall. He stared at her, then he slapped her back. Sophia fell against the table. Martin shouted. Laura screamed. Victor pushed away from his chair. Marcus moved between them before Damian could strike again. He drove Damian face first onto the table. Damian struggled. Marcus did not. Ethan watched calmly. The alliance had completed its final shape. Not love, not loyalty. Animals biting each other inside a closing cage. Damian's cheek pressed against the wood. Ethan, he gasped. Control your dog. Marcus tightened his grip. Ethan lifted his wine. You called him a discarded dog when you entered Crown City. Damian's face twisted in pain. I was angry. You were honest. Ethan gestured. Marcus released him. Damian collapsed into his chair. For the first time, he looked old. Not wise, not dignified, only used up. Ethan opened a folder. Inside were the complete records of his father's death, the sabotage order, the payment, the mechanic's confession, the Blackthorn Shell Company. Damian saw the first page. His face changed. Sophia stared at him. Martin covered his mouth. Laura began whispering that she knew nothing. Ethan slid the folder across the table. It stopped before Damian. My father trusted you. Damian did not touch the file. He was going to destroy the company. He was going to expose you. He was weak. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Damian recognized the mistake too late. The room seemed to lose warmth. He believed rules mattered, Damian continued quickly. Men like that are always crushed. Ethan stood. Nobody breathed. He walked to Damian's side. Damian looked up. For years, Ethan had imagined rage in this moment, a scream, a blood. Instead, he felt only distance. Damian had killed his father for a company Ethan now owned. He had sacrificed everything for a throne already taken from him. There was no need to kill him. Death would end the lesson. Ethan leaned close. You murdered my father to keep Blackthorn. Damian swallowed. Ethan's voice became a whisper. And now you will live knowing his son owns every brick. Damian's eyes widened. Ethan straightened. Evelyn distributed the final documents: criminal referrals, asset seizures, pension recovery orders, civil claims, worker compensation suits, fraud indictments, conspiracy charges, environmental liability, wrongful death actions. Every person at the table received a different ruin. Martin began begging first. He spoke about his children. Laura spoke about her mother. Victor spoke about illness. Sophia spoke about their memories. Damian spoke about partnership. At last, the great Damian Blackthorn offered Ethan half the company. The room went silent. Ethan looked around the table. Then he laughed. One quiet breath of amusement. Damian realized why. He had offered half of something he no longer owned. Ethan finished his wine. No forgiveness, Sophia sobbed. No second chances. Martin covered his face. No rescue. Laura slid from her chair. No mercy purchased with tears. Damian stared at him. What will happen to us? Ethan looked toward the windows. Below them, workers entered Blackthorn Tower under the Raven Crown emblem. Formerly discarded engineers crossed the lobby. Families of injured employees met compensation teams. The company was alive, stronger, freed from the people who had poisoned it. "You will receive exactly what you gave others," Ethan said. The doors opened. Investigators entered. Damian did not resist at first. Then they reached for him. He exploded. He shouted that the company belonged to him. He shouted that Ethan was a thief. He shouted that everyone in the room was ungrateful. They dragged him toward the door. His shoes scraped across the floor, the same sound Ethan's shoes had made across the ballroom. Sophia crawled after Ethan one final time. "Please do not leave me alone." He looked down. "You left first." Marcus escorted her away. Martin followed. Then Laura. Then Victor. One by one, the chairs emptied. The door closed. Silence returned. Amelia gathered the abandoned documents. Evelyn removed her gloves. Naomi shut down the recording system. Marcus stood near the entrance. Ethan remained at the head of the table. The city shone beneath him. Months later, Damian Blackthorn sat alone in a prison medical wing. No visitors came. Sophia had testified against him. Martin had testified against Sophia. Laura had testified against Martin. Victor had confessed to everything and still received no mercy. Their loyalty lasted exactly as long as their comfort. Sophia lived in a rented room beneath a false name. She spent her days avoiding cameras and her nights reading old messages from Ethan. Messages she had once ignored. Plans for their home, savings updates, wedding ideas, promises written by a man she had considered too poor to deserve patience. She sent apologies until the address stopped accepting them. Martin's children changed their surname. Laura's family denied knowing her. Victor died before trial in a public hospital, surrounded by strangers who recognized his face but did not care. Damian lived longest. That was Ethan's final gift. Blackthorn Holdings became Crown Blackthorn Industries. Workers received ownership shares. Northgate was dismantled and rebuilt. Crown City expanded. Helios power spread across the region. The medical compound saved thousands. Naomi's forecasting network prevented shortages before they began. Marcus trained a security force loyal to law rather than ego. Evelyn created a legal foundation for employees betrayed by powerful corporations. Amelia remained beside Ethan as Raven Crown expanded beyond the city. One evening, Ethan stood in the old ballroom. The marble had been replaced. The stage was gone. No trace of his blood remained. A young employee asked why he had kept the room. Ethan looked toward the windows. Far below, the city moved through networks he owned, protected, and understood. "Because memory is useful," he said. The employee waited for more. Ethan offered none. He walked to the place where Damian had once stood above him. There was no satisfaction left, no rage, only certainty. Damian had believed ownership meant taking what others loved. Sophia had believed value was measured by what glittered. The board had believed the powerless would remain powerless forever. They had all misunderstood the same thing. Power did not arrive with applause. It grew in silence. It watched. It learned. It purchased every hidden weakness. Then it sent the bill. Ethan lifted a glass of wine toward the empty room. His reflection stared back from the dark window. Calm, untouchable, alone by choice. $1, he murmured. His smile was cold. That was all your empire was worth.